Hey everybody, welcome back to Instant Gameplay. My name is Sean, and we are still counting down our top 50 board games of all time right here on the Instant Gameplay channel. And today we are counting down numbers 20 through 11. The next video will be the top 10, and boy do we got some good games this chunk. I'm really excited. There's some really good games over here. I'm super excited to share those with you. But before we do, go ahead and click that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell if you haven't done so already. Once you have all that taken care of, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. So here it is, number 20. Number 20 on my list is a game where you are building an amusement park for robots, and that is Steam Park. Love this game. This game is so great. Each round in this game, you and everybody else in the game, because you're all competing to build the best amusement park you can, are going to be rolling some dice. Each die face lets you do a different action, and you're going to roll them at the same time, and whenever you're done, and you have the actions you want, you're going to go ahead and yell done and take the first player, or if you're the second player, take the second player marker, and so on. Now, if you're the first player, that's great because you get to do some really great things, but you might be sacrificing some abilities in order to be that first player. Now, if you're the last player, you unfortunately are going to get some waste in your park, and that's never good because extra waste means losing points at the end of the game. So you have to make sure you're cleaning up your waste that your park guests are inevitably going to leave you. The game is great. As you go throughout the game, you're going to be building attractions and different like sideshow things and different concessions and all sorts of stuff that allow you to do other things with those dice throughout the game. Ultimately, you want to attract as many guests as you can to your park that are robots in order to get the most points. And at the end of the game, the player with the most points is going to win. I really enjoy this game. More so than other theme park games. I've only played a couple theme park games, but the ones that I have played, really, this one stands out to me. And I think it's a couple of the mechanics with the dice and having to clean up after the guests and being able to manipulate the actions a little bit. I really enjoy those. They're really great. You also have some cards you can use that'll let you get bonus points if you build certain things, so that's really great too. The only downside to this game is the playtime. For as light of a game as this is, A, it looks much more intimidating than it actually is, so there's a downside, and B, my daughter can't play this with me yet because there's just so much to do. It takes a while to teach. It says 10 plus, that's pretty accurate, but she'll have to wait a couple years for this one yet. But 2 to 4 players, I've played it with 2, 3, and 4 players, and I enjoy it, and all those player counts. Probably plays the best at 4, like most games, but this one's really great. And yeah, it's put out by Yellow Games. Yellow always puts out good stuff. And yeah, I mean, if you like theme parks, if you like robots, Steam Park. I mean, that's just the way to go, but it's just an awesome game. But number 20, Steam Park. Number 19 is an interesting pick for me personally. Full disclosure, I have done this list of top 50s before. I've been doing it, I've been ranking my games for years. But normally it's just been for fun. I've never really publicly said what my favorite games are. This one, for the last year, this game ranked number 2. And it dropped to number 19. And I think it dropped mostly because I haven't had a chance to get it to the table recently. I've only played it a handful of times, but I really like it. It is a heavy worker placement game. And when I say heavy, I mean heavy in gameplay and heavy in box, because the game is heavy. And that is, Caverna. Uwe Rosenberg. He puts out big games. I mean, there are other games. I mean, I've only played a couple Uwe games, and this one sticks out to me, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Even though it did drop for me from number 2 to number 19, overall, it's just a great worker placement game. I still opt to play this one over a couple other, like I would still opt to play this over some other, not only Uwe Rosenberg games, but just the worker placement games in general, just because of the what you get out of this box. There's also an expansion, which I also have, which adds even more to this, as if you couldn't fit anything else in this box. But it's just great. And in this game, you are going to be building a cave to live in because you are a troll, and you have to build, or it says, sorry, not troll, dwarf. I'm sorry, you are a dwarf. And you are building a cave to live in, so you have to furnish that cave with different things and build the rooms. But you also have a farm to take care of and different animals and growing crops and things of that nature, which is super fun as well. And throughout the game, there's a big board in the middle with all these different locations you can go to on, and those cards let you do different things. They let you get rubies, they let you get different resources, they let you grow crops, they let you get animals, they let you add more dwarves to your family, so all sorts of stuff. And I don't really do the game justice describing it without showing it to you. There is a solo mode of this, so maybe I'll do a solo mode of this. Again, comment down below what you want to see in those gameplay videos I talked about, and specifically solo games. So if this is one you want to see, we'll definitely do this one, because it's a great game. This particular version is by Mayfair, and Lookout Games too. I don't know if either of those are even a thing anymore, so this game might be a little hard to track down, but if you can get your hands on it, it's worth a play. Takes a while, but it's worth a play. It is 1 to 7 players. I would never recommend going 7 players with this guy. But I've played it with 2, 3, and 4 players, and I love it in all those player counts. They're so great. It probably, again, works... Actually, to be fair, I think this works best at 3 players. When I played it with 3, that was the most fun I had when we played it with 3. It says 30 minutes per player, and that's just to set up the game. Look up on YouTube other videos of this game, because the amount of space it takes up is huge. It takes up so much space. But no, 30 minutes per player is probably about accurate. Maybe a little longer if there's new players involved, because there's a lot of things to explain. And 12 plus is accurate. I might even bump it up to 13 or 14 just because of the amount of stuff in this box. Just to give you a small little taste of what's in here. I mean, there's just stuff and stuff and stuff, and I'm going to dump this whole box out probably, but I mean, just stuff, and I mean, this game, there's a lot in here. So, it is one of those games that looks way more intimidating than it actually is. So, if you like heavier games, this might be a good one to start for heavier, because there's a lot going on, but it's not as heavy as a lot of the other heavy games out there. So give it a shot. I think if you like worker placement games and you like heavy games, it's a good one for you. It's my number 19, Caverna. My number 18 is the largest box I own for a game, and I'm not exaggerating at all. The box you just saw for Caverna is a big box. That's got nothing on this guy. Oh, there it is. Fortune and Glory. Look at this thing. It's huge. And the box makes the game seem so much more intimidating than it is. The game is so simple, but I love it. What's awesome about this game is there's many different ways to play it. There's a co-op version, there's a competitive version, you can combine the two. I've done this a million ways. Love it, love it, love it. There's a solo mode, so maybe we'll play solo on this game. This is by Flying Frog Productions, a couple other games they've done. They did Last Night on Earth. They've done, what's the other one? A Touch of Evil, that was the other one they did. And what's really cool about that company is they don't do art for their artwork. They hire actors and then they take pictures of them, which I think is very unique. And it's kind of hard to get some of their games now because their games have really taken a back seat to some of the newer ones. But I wish they would come back and do more because these games, the production value is just fantastic. I mean, just look at, this box is huge. But in this game, it is basically Indiana Jones in a box, just without the name. But you are going through the Pulp Fiction era, fighting potentially Nazis, so if you're kind of sensitive to that. But my daughter plays this and we just take those out. We just take out the Nazi cards. And you can easily alter the game to take those out. Super, super easy. It actually says on the back of the box, it says, Fortune and Glory is set in the pulp adventure genre of the 1930s. As such, it includes enemies and villains that are part of the Nazi party that had taken hold of Germany at that time. It says, please game responsibly. So basically, if you're sensitive to those things, don't play this game. I think that's awesome that they did that, but the game is great. You can play it cooperatively and fight the enemies, or you can also play competitively against each other, and that's the way I prefer to play, but I have played it both ways. You can also combine the two, which is fine. I think the competitive is the best way to play. And I love this game. It also comes with a CD soundtrack included, which gives some just like music, just some background noise. It's some cheesy Pulp Fiction music, but I love it. It's really great as you're going through. I haven't even talked about what the game does, but basically in this game you are traveling around the world, collecting artifacts from different locations, trying to bring them back to your home city, sell them at auction, or just sell them to get money. That's the basis of the game. Just like in Indiana Jones when he wants to get the idols, or he wants to get the Lost Ark, or the Ark of the Covenant, things like that. It's basically that. You're going through the world, trying to get those things, bring them back, sell them for fortune and glory. That's what it is. And I love the Indiana Jones movies. They're some of my favorite movies. And this game just takes that to another level. I wish it had the IP on it, though. I really wish it did. I think that maybe would have given this game a little more popularity just to get it on the table. But man, is this game great. It's so fantastic. But because of the size of the box, setup and teardown time, I think that does hinder it a little bit from hitting the table as much as it should. And maybe that's why it's my number 18. But yeah, it is my number 18, and that is Fortune and Glory. Number 17 is a game another worker placement game. Maybe a little on the heavier side. It's probably mid-weight, but it's got a very unique theme, and I love it. And that is Shakespeare by Starry Games. This game, some people talk about it and some people don't. It seems to be that game in the middle that either you know about it or you don't. It's not one of those like, oh, I've heard of it, but I guess I've never really played it. It's either you know about it or you don't. And that's fine, because the game is great. If you can find it, get your hands on it, play it. It's fantastic. But it's a worker placement game. And in this game, you are putting on a play. You're putting on a Shakespearean play. And there's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind when you're sending your workers out. Because not only do you have to hire the best actors and pay them by the end of the game, but you also need to make costumes, build sets, and overall just have the best show. And you're sending your workers out to do those things, but it's a really cool mechanic to determine how many people you get to send in first player and all that. What's really cool is that it's a blind bidding mechanic. You literally place in your hand the number of workers you want to send out, and you hold them out in front of you and count to 3 and flip them over. And that's the number of workers you can send out, and that determines a bunch of different things throughout the game, but mostly the first player. It's so great. As you're hiring actors and people to work on your sets and costumes, you kind of build this tableau in front of you with all of those things, and that's where you send them. You can also send them to see Shakespeare themselves. He's called the author, but it's Shakespeare, and he gives you things. You can also send people to see the Queen, and she gives you things. But what's interesting is at the end of the round, you have exhaust tokens, and you have to place those on the different characters that you used, because they can't be used again for the next round. So you have to really think, who am I going to use and when am I going to use them? Because that's important. Also, can I afford to get these specific actors and builders? Because they cost a lot of money, and if I'm not making any money, I'm not going to be able to pay these guys, and then you lose money. There is an expansion. I don't have it. I've never played with it, but I don't think you need it necessarily because the base game gives you so much. And the actors you're hiring are literally characters from Shakespeare. There's Romeo and Juliet and Othello and Hamlet and King Lear and all these really great characters. It's such a fun game. If you can get your hands on it, go ahead and pick it up and give it a try. If you like worker placement games, it's great. This game at one time was ranked my number 3 or 4, I think, and it's dropped quite a bit. And it's dropped from getting it to the table. No one wants to play this with me. But I'm still holding on to it because Shakespeare is great. When I was in high school and growing up and in college, I did a lot of theater. A lot of community theater, a lot of theater, just doing that type of stuff, and summer acting academies. So this game kind of hits home for me, and it's on a personal level. But at the same time, it's just a fantastic game. The mechanics are great. It's 1 to 4 players. There's a solo mode, so maybe we'll play solo. 13 plus I think is pretty accurate, 12 plus maybe, just because there's a lot going on. And I mean, there's a lot going on in this game. There's a lot of things you have to think about. And then 20 to 90 minutes, that's probably pretty accurate. I think when I've played with 4 players or 3 players, it takes over an hour, well over an hour, but it's fantastic. And I love it, and that is why it's my number 17, Shakespeare. My number 16 is one of the newest games I own. Because of the pandemic and work-related things, I haven't been able to get as many games as I would have liked to in 2020. But this is one of them that I did, and there's a couple different versions. You can play them all together. This is the version I went for because it's horror-related, although I want them all because I just think the game and the system is fantastic. It's my number 16, Unmatched. This happens to be the Cobble and Fog version. There's also just the regular version. There's a Bigfoot versus Robin Hood. There's a Bruce Lee, and there's also a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which will be coming out soon, I think. But there's a ton of characters you can play with. I think there's almost 20 characters you can play with, and it's fantastic. But what happens is you take on the role of a famous character. In this particular game, you have Dracula, Jekyll and Hyde, Invisible Man, and Sherlock Holmes. And you take on the role of one of them, you get a deck of cards that is specific to them, and you have a little board, and you move around, and you're trying to take out the other player. And that is, the whole point of the game is to knock out the other player. The other player, or you, could have other things that the other player doesn't have. So, for example, Dracula has the Sisters, which is 3 little tokens that get carried around the board. The Invisible Man has fog tokens he can put out to kind of screw with the other players. Sherlock Holmes has Dr. Watson, and Jekyll and Hyde, I mean, they can turn into one each other. So they've all got their special abilities that they can take advantage of. There's also some downsides to those. There's pros and cons to each, but this game is great. And my daughter likes it too. I mean, even though it's this version is horror themed, it's not bad. I mean, there's no blood or guts or anything. It's just the theming. It's very light theming. I mean, they're all there, really good theming, but they don't really dive deep into the storylines of some of the more gruesome things that happen in their stories, which is great. It says ages 9 and up, and that's accurate. I mean, my daughter's 9 years old, and she loves this game. She asks to play it quite a bit. I've played as all of these characters. She's played as all these characters. I really want to get more characters to play with, specifically the base game, which comes with Medusa, Sinbad, Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and King Arthur. And then I also want the Bigfoot and Robin Hood expansion. The Bruce Lee and the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I can give it or take it. It doesn't matter. I don't really care about those. But the base game I definitely want, and the other characters. They're also saying there's going to be more stuff coming out. This game will have so many expansions. I can't wait to play them all. 2 to 4 players. I think it plays best at 2 players. It's a great 2-player game. Just a quick battle game. Love it. In 20 to 40 minutes with 2 players, this game goes real fast. And I love it. It's just a quick game. And it's just, it's fantastic. The board is also double-sided, so you can play at 2 different locations, and those also offer their own pros and cons as well. This game, I haven't had it that long, and we've played the heck out of it. I mean, we play it all the time. I love it. It's by Restoration Games. This was based off of another game that had a Star Wars theme, and then they decided to do it this way. Star Wars is fine. I think I prefer these guys a little bit better, but I've never played that version, so I can't really have an opinion on it. But yeah, it's fantastic. If you want a really strong 2-player game, pick up Unmatched, my number 16. My number 15 is a game that has a theme to one of my greatest loves of all time, Disney. And I love a good Disney game. And there's not a lot of Disney games in the modern hobby. Normally they're all mass markets. They're just like, oh, here's a Frozen roll and move. Or they'll take a game like Monopoly or Clue or Yahtzee or Sorry, and they'll just paste Disney on top of it. But that's not what happened when Ravensburger got their hands on the Disney villains, because this is Disney Villainous. Oh boy, this game. My wife and I love this game, and my wife has a friend who lives in Washington State, and she comes out and visits a couple times a year, and when she comes, this is one of the games that we play almost every night she's there. I mean, we will just go through and play all the villains. And I like this game so much that I had to pick up some of the expansions. In fact, I have all of them. I have all of the expansions for Villainous. So in this game, what you do is you take on the role of one of the Disney villains. In the base game, I'm just going to go through them all because I think it's fantastic. In the base game, you have Captain Hook, Maleficent, Jafar, Ursula, Prince John, and the Queen of Hearts. The first expansion was this guy over here, and that added Hades, Dr. Facilier, and Evil Queen. Then this expansion added Ratigan, Scar, and Yzma, and then this expansion added Pete, Cruella de Vil, and Mother Gothel. So basically you take, and you can mix and match these, it's fantastic. You take on the role of one of these villains, you get a deck of cards that is specific to them, and you get a board that is specific to them. And you get your little mover, and you're going from location to location doing things to help you accomplish your specific character goal. So if I'm playing as Captain Hook, I'm going to have a completely different objective than if my wife is playing as Cruella de Vil. We have two completely separate objectives that we're trying to complete before the other player. Now, what's also cool is each player has a fate deck that is filled with the heroes from their story. So if it's Captain Hook, he's got the Lost Boys, Peter Pan, Wendy, all of them, they're in his fate deck. And the other players can use that deck to stop you because they can't go from, if I'm playing as Jafar, I can't jump over into, the Evil Queen's universe. That doesn't work. But she can use that deck, and we can use each other's decks to kind of screw with each other a little bit. And I love that. It's a little bit take-thatty, but really not bad. And really, it's just, I gotta do my thing before you do your thing. But I'm gonna try to stop you from doing your thing while trying to accomplish my thing. I think I've played as every villain, maybe? Almost every villain. There's 2 I have not played as yet, and that's it. 2 villains that I haven't played as yet. But that's mostly because I give the other people their picks, and they tend to pick the villains that I've never played as, which is fine. I've seen them played. I know what they do. I just want to get the taste for myself. But the game is so great, and I'm waiting. There's also Marvel Villainous, which I don't have because I'm not the biggest Marvel fan. I mean, Marvel's okay. I've seen the movies. I like it. But if I had to pick between the 2 themes, definitely this theme. I'm assuming there will be a Star Wars Villainous just because Disney licensing and all that. But I hope they continue with more Disney villains. There's a few villains that here are out that they don't have yet. And I would really love to see, I'd love to see Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Governor Radcliffe from Pocahontas would be a really cool one. I'd love to see a Pixar set where you see maybe Waternoose from Monsters, Inc. And maybe, who else would be in that set? That would be kind of cool. There's too many cool, I can't say anything about Pixar, but there's just some really cool villains I would love to see added to the game. Because it just adds so much replay value to this. It's a fantastic game. I have all the expansions, and that is why it is my number 15, Disney Villainous. My number 14 is a game that is, I don't know if I would call it worker placement. I would more or less call it dice placement, and it's a great dice placement game, and that is Kingsburg. This game is fantastic. The version I have is by Z-Man Games. This is the 2nd edition. I've played both editions, and I prefer the 2nd edition because it also includes some expansion modules in it that help you to change the game a little bit. So fun. But in this game, you are going to be basically members of like a medieval village kind of a thing, and you're going to be rolling some dice. And in those dice, it gives you, obviously once you roll the dice, you're going to get values, and there's 18 different people in the kingdom that you can go to, starting with starts with the court jester. He's number 1, and it goes all the way up to the king, and he's number 18. And so if I roll a 7, let's say if I roll 2 dice and I roll a 3 and a 4, I can put those together on the number 7 guy, or I can put the 3 on the 3 and the 4 on the 4. But the problem is other people could try to block me, and each one of those individuals are going to give me different things. They could give me resources that are going to help me. They could give me other abilities, like I can purchase new buildings, which help me. There's also the ever-growing threat of, people coming into the kingdom and trying to attack the kingdom, and we need to be prepared for that and have attack ready for that and defense ready for that. So there's that. You can look into the future with some of these guys and see what's coming next to better prepare. But the best part about this game, and I kid you not, this is like one of the coolest parts about this game, is everybody on the board tends to resemble a celebrity a little bit. There's a guy on here, and I'm not even joking, he looks like Robin Williams. I mean, he really looks like Robin Williams. There's one guy that looks like James Potter in Harry Potter. I mean, there's a guy that looks like Weird Al. I mean, there's just some really cool comparisons like that, but that's not the only reason to like this game. But the game is great. It's a great dice placement. They kind of take the place of the workers in the game, being able to do all sorts of different things on the board. And the expansion modules that come with this really do help. I mean, they add more layers to the game that the base game just doesn't have. And it's really great, but it allows you to take those and take them out of the game if you want an easier game, or to add them if you want a little bit more of an advanced game. This game plays at 14 plus, and that might be a little high, I'm not sure. That there's a lot going on, and that's probably just for the expansions. The base game I might do 12 and up. I might do just 12 and up for the base game. 2 to 5 players, I've played with 2 and 3 players, really enjoy it. And it says 90 to 120 minutes. I can see that. The base game with 2 players maybe takes a little less than 90 minutes, but it's still a really, really fun game. And that is why it is my number 14, Kingsburg. Number 13 is a game, it's a cooperative game that completely replaced another cooperative game for me. I still own it. I still own Pandemic. Pandemic is a great, great game, great cooperative game. I enjoy it. It wasn't always my favorite. In fact, I don't know how much in the top 50 it would have been. I never really counted it because of this game. But I've had this game for a little over a year, and I love it. It did come down a little bit when it first came out. It was much higher. I think it did hit within the top 10, but now it's just missing the top 10. It just kind of edges out that top 10 there. But it is another horror game. It is a cooperative game, and it is Horrified. I love this game. This I don't know if it's my favorite co-op. We'll have to wait and see for the next list, but it's definitely one of them. In this game, it's 1 to 5 players. There is a solo mode. I will cover this game on the channel because I love this game that much for co-ops. But you are trying to save the village from the universal monsters. So you have the Wolfman, Dracula, the creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein, the Mummy, and the Invisible Man. And depending on who you select to play with, so you're not going to play with all the villains. You're going to play between 2 and 4 villains in there, and depending on how hard you want the game to be, you are going to take on the role of one of the villagers. They all have special abilities, going around the town gathering items to help defeat these monsters. Once the monsters are all defeated, you win. Each monster has a different victory condition that you have to do. So, for example, Dracula, you have to go and destroy all of his coffins, and do it that way. With I believe it's with the Bride of Frankenstein, you kind of want to keep them together or keep them apart, one of the two. I haven't played this game in a while, but I love this game. Ages 10 and up, that's only for the theme because of the monster theme, but it's not heavy themed to those movies. They're just kind of there. And besides, this is like Universal Monsters, so those horror movies are still kind of tame as it is. 60 minutes, real fast game, to about an hour. I've played it with 2 and 3. I've played the solo mode. I've played 2 and 3 players, and I love it. It's so great. If you need a good cooperative game and you want something either for Halloween, we just passed Halloween, or you need something just for the family, something to work together. This game is not that scary. The artwork's not that bad. I think it makes a fantastic family game, and that is my number 13, Horrified. My number 12 is a game that has a bunch of expansions to it. And I have a bunch of the expansions, I'm just not going to show you them all because they're all in separate boxes. There's no good way to really, that I have, that I can really put them together. And I just didn't want to pull them all out. But it is a dice game works best with 2 players. You can play with teams. I don't prefer to play that way. It is Dice Throne. This game is great because each of these, and you can get them all together, but each of the games comes in a box like this with 2 characters. And there are 4 boxes like this. This is Season 2. Season 1 came with all the characters. Season 2 has different characters, and Season 2 is much better. But each box comes with 2 characters. So this particular one is the Gunslinger and the Samurai. Each player takes one of the characters, and I'm going to show you because the game is set up in a way where takes one of these trays. There's 2 trays in here. This is the gunslinger. So inside their tray, you just give them the tray. It's awesome. I wish more games did this with characters because it's just awesome. They get their little board that they place in front of them. Each one of these little spots is different things they can do when they roll the dice. They get their little player card. They get some other cards. They get their custom dice. Each character has their own custom dice, some custom tokens, and each one has special abilities. Now, as you're playing, you're literally battling each other, and depending on what you do on your turn, kind of determines what the other player and how they're going to defend, because you're going to roll dice. You're going to roll your dice. Just like in Yahtzee, you're going to roll them up to 3 times. And you're also going to play cards from your hand that allow you to change die rolls, do more things with the dice. But basically, it's a Yahtzee mechanic. And you roll the dice, and every ability on your board has different requirements that you need depending on the die faces. And if you can get those things, you can do those damages or do those abilities to your opponent. If you work as a team, which you can do, I prefer one-on-one because I think it just is a really great 2-player game. But if you play with a team, then you can work together to share tokens in some aspects, not always, but sometimes, and do different things to your opponents. Very, very fun. The goal of the game is to get your opponent's health dial down to 0. Each person starts, I think it's at 50, and you work your way down to 0. It's fantastic. It actually plays very quickly too. Like, you wouldn't think it plays very fast. You're like, oh, 50, that's high. I mean, I gotta knock out 50 points. But you're oftentimes knocking out 5 or 6 points in a session or in a turn. So it's really not that bad. It says 2 to 6 players. Play it with 2 players. Play one-on-one. That's the best way to play it that I have found. I really enjoy it that way. It says 30 minutes. It really is a quick game. My daughter and I have played this, and we play it very, very quickly. And it's 8 and up because it's so easy. You just give the player their little tray. They set everything up, and you go. You play. The player aids in this game outline exactly. Here's literally what the back says. How to play. Roll your hero's dice 3 times to activate abilities. Upgrade abilities and play action cards to surprise your foe. Defeat your opponents and take the throne. That's it. I mean, literally, that's all there is. Maybe we'll do a small playthrough on the channel so you guys can get a taste of this game, because I feel like this game came out and it was kind of just a flash in the pan for games, but the game is fantastic, and I see it sticking around on my list for a long, long time. That is my number 12, Dice Throne. Number 11, just missing the top 10, is what I truly believe is my wife's favorite game, and if I had her do a list of her top games, this would be her number 1. I guarantee this would be her number 1. And that is another worker placement game, and this one is Stone Age. I really like this game as far as worker placement games go, because it adds something that other ones don't, and that is how you get your resources. Other games, you just take your guide, place it there, grab a resource, you're done. But in this one, you can place out as many people as you want to a single location as long as there's room, and you're going to roll a dice for each one of those guys there. So if you put 3 guys out, you're going to roll 3 dice. And they give you a little cup to shake the dice in, which is just an aesthetic, but it's cool. And then there's a little bit of a rule that you have to follow. It's a little bit of math, but it's not hard. That tells you how, based on what you rolled, how many of that particular resource you get. It's so much fun. As you go through the game, the goal of the game is to build huts for your, I guess, your family to live in. I guess they are a family in the Stone Age. Build a hut for your family to live in, and each hut requires different resources that you need to buy, but each hut also gives you different amounts of points. And once one stack of huts is complete, there's multiple stacks, one stack of hut is completely empty, the game ends, and whoever has the most points wins. The game is great because there's also other things you can do in the game. You can upgrade tools, which allow you to change die faces and die rolls. That helps you in that aspect. There is a location on the board that my wife and I call the Love Shack, which is where you send 2 meeples to produce another meeple. So it's a very interesting way of producing to give you more meeples. My wife loves that strategy of adding more meeples. But here's the thing about adding meeples, though, is you have to feed your tribe at the end of every turn. So yeah, you'll be able to do more stuff and get more resources, but if you can't feed them, you're kind of really going to be hurting at the end of your round. But you can go hunting for more food. So there's toss-ups, and I love it. Normally I don't like games where you have to feed your tribe or feed your team, or but this one, it works so well, and I can't imagine playing without that rule. I've heard of people playing without that rule, and it's like, no, you gotta play with that rule because of the whole building up your tribe and adding more people, so you gotta play with that rule. You can also go and build boats, which allow you to do other things and give resources to other players with yourself, and give yourself bonuses at the end of the game with different types of icons and things you can collect. It's really cool. It adds there's worker placement, set collecting, resource management. There's so many different things in this game going on. It says 13 plus. I think that's just because of the math involved. I give this a couple years and my daughter will be fine with it. I'd probably put maybe 10 plus, as long as you can there to help the child with the math involved, because it's not hard math. It's really, really simple, basic math facts. 2 to 4 players. I've played it at 2, I've played it at 3, I've played it at 4. I love it at all those player counts. It's just fantastic. 60 to 90 minutes. This one can be a little bit on the longer side, depending on the strategies you take within the game, and if they are going to get the huts off the board, which are ultimately going to end the game. So it all depends. I've played this game with people who ended up really loving it. I've played it with people who didn't really care for it, but I really enjoy it. And that is why Stone Age is my number 11. And that's going to do it for numbers 20 through 11. Next time you see us, we are going to be counting down the top 10 games of all time. I know a lot of people who know me know what my number 1 is. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, we'll see. But I know you guys all can't wait to see what my number 1 game of all time is, and I can't wait to show you. So if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like if you like what you saw. Comment down below what you want to see on this channel. I love talking to you guys and hearing from you. And also ring that bell icon so you can be the first to know when new videos are available right here on Instant Gameplay. This has been Sean with Instant Gameplay. Thanks for watching.